Hey soapy folks, this is Kevin with Divinely Designed, and this is, I guess, the first in a series. I had posted a little while ago for you guys to post some questions or videos that you would like to see, and so this is the first one of those. A few people had asked about doing a video about packaging, so tonight we're going to do a brief video, I think, on different kinds of packaging. Okay, so let's get started. So the first packaging is naked, right? There's a lot of people out there who, especially if they're selling on the web, they have no packaging at all. And, you know, the pros to that are certainly one, that it's cheap. I mean, there's no packaging material. It's really eco-friendly, right? There's nothing that ends up in landfill, either paper or plastic. The con side of that is your bar of soap is a little bit unprotected, right? And also, if you are making any kind of claims about your soap that, such as it's moisturizing or, you know, it feels great on your skin, those kinds of things, you do need to label your soap with all of the appropriate ingredients. And there are other labeling regulations as well. So without that, you would need to include the labeling in some other format, either on a piece of paper that would be included, something along those lines. But that's certainly the cheapest, easiest, quickest, no time involved is naked. Second is something called cigar bands. And cigar bands are what I do, and they're really easy. So you have a piece of paper, and I have a paper cutter, and I just, you know, take off strips of paper, and then what you do is you simply wrap it around your soap, and I just use the soap itself as a guide. This one's a little bit long, so let me just trim this down just a little bit. Okay, so I just wrap it around like that, and you can use a solid color, or, you know, you can certainly use pattern paper. If you have a nice pattern paper, that works really well. The good thing about this is it's, again, pretty quick. You can get lots of strips of paper out of an 8.5 by 11 sheet or a 12 by 12 sheet. So it's pretty quick and easy to do. It doesn't cost a lot of money. Pretty eco-friendly, doesn't use a lot of paper, and you can encourage people to recycle. You can then do your labels as well. So for my labels, this is my Mandarin Mystique soap. So I print out my labels just on a printer, and on my label I have the name of my company and the name of the soap, and then around the edge here, which is kind of hard to see probably, I have some labeling information that's required, so the address, Divinely Designed, Philadelphia, the phone number for the business, and then some restrictions: do not eat, external use only, never tested on animals, made in the USA. Sorry, I don't know if you can see that there. It's pretty small. Anyway, that's on there, and then I simply just sort of center it and put it on there. And then I have my ingredient list as well. And my ingredient list, again, if you're following labeling regulations, I have mine listed. Let's see if I can focus this a little bit here. I have the information labeled by INCI format, and it's labeled from the most to the least ingredient used. And then I just have my website down here at the bottom. So what I do is I use the label with the ingredients as a way to hold the cigar band in place. So I just put that on there, I give it a good rub so it stays on, And that's pretty much it. So it stays, it's pretty quick and easy to do. The con side of cigar bands are, I only sell my soap on a website. I haven't done any fairs or anything, but certainly I've heard people who do fairs. The one bad thing about this is it doesn't really protect your soap that well. Same thing with the naked option. If people are going to pick up your soap to smell it, and so then they're sort of just touching your soap a lot. If that doesn't bother you, then it's not such a big deal. The other thing with cigar bands, sort of on the bad side, is I usually wait to put my cigar bands on until they're cured, and I usually do that around 5 weeks or so. Sometimes 4, sometimes later, sometimes 6. So at that point, they've lost a lot of water, but your soap will still continue to lose a little bit of water. And what that means is your bar will shrink. So over time, even kind of a short period of time, is this cigar band tends to get a little bit loose. Right now, it's very firm. It's not going to fall off. But over time, if your bar shrinks even a little bit, then these tend to slide off. So that's kind of a con to cigar bands. Okay. So those are pretty quick and easy options. Another option is organza bags, or bags of some sort. I don't have an organza bag, but I have a burlap bag. So, this would definitely be kind of a rustic option. And this is actually a really big bag. You can buy them smaller. So this is pretty simple. Just put your soap in your bag. This is a great option for rustic soaps. And just sort of pull it. Now again, this is a really big bag. You can get bags that are much smaller. Organza bags are made of organza, and they look a little bit more elegant. Again, so I've seen some people use the bags and then do cigar bands on top of them, or things like that. So you can sort of do a combination, or they just use the bags and then they put the information inside the bag itself. This is really good because it protects your soap, and you can still smell it. People can still pick it up and smell through the bag, which obviously with your naked option and your cigar bands, they can smell the soap very easy. Oh, and the other good thing about cigar bands and naked is that they see the design of your soap. So with a bag, obviously you see you can't really see the design. It starts to get obscured. So if seeing the design of your soap is important, you want to take that into consideration as well. And for what I understand, especially if you do fairs and markets and things like that, sort of the visual of the soaps themselves, whether that's through packaging or the design itself, is partly what brings people over to take a look, and then the smell is sort of what convinces them to buy. If you're selling on a website like I do, they don't have the opportunity to smell, so I take pictures of my soaps naked, but when I send them out, they have a cigar band on. Okay, so bags are another option. Jumping back to cigar bands, you could also, I've seen people use a ribbon of some sort. This is another nice option if you have a nice ribbon that you use. Again, you can do all kinds of design elements here using a really lovely ribbon that goes well with your soap, and then put labels on it. They work really well. And the other thing with cigar bands I've seen people do, and I haven't done this, but I print my labels out on stickers and then I stick them on here. But I've seen people who print the cigar bands themselves on an 8.5 sheet by 11, like on a printer, and they actually just cut those out then and use those right as cigar bands. And that's a really good option because it gives you the ability to do a lot of design work on your labels that you just print out on your home printer and just print them there. There are certainly labeling machines. They're pretty expensive. You can buy. I buy just stickers right now at Staples, but there are lots of online sources to buy cheap labels as well that are blank, and then again you print them out. Okay, so we've done naked, we've done cigar bands, we've done bags. Let's talk about shrink wrap. Okay, so let me find my example here. All right, so I have tried shrink wrap. I'm not a huge fan, but I know there are lots of people out there who like shrink wrap. This is a shrink wrap bag. And I'm gonna try and put some links down below for some sources of these kinds of things. But anyway, shrink wrap bag. It's just a clear plastic bag, and I'm gonna put my soap in it. Now this bag is a little big for this soap, so you can buy bags in different sizes. I was just trying out. I wasn't sure that I was going to use shrink wrap, and I wasn't really sure what the final size of my soap would be, so I kind of just bought a big one and sort of played with it. So this is a little too big for this soap, but just to give you an idea, I then have a heat gun, and let's see, let me get a piece of paper, so hopefully you can see this a little bit better. Probably a little hard to see on that background. Let's try this. Okay, that's probably better. All right, so this is going to be a little bit loud. I'm going to turn on my heat gun. And when you turn on the heat gun, you kind of want to go back and forth. You don't necessarily want to stay in one spot, and you'll see it start to shrink. And this takes a little bit to warm up. Okay, so now doing shrink wrap takes a little bit of practice, and I am not very good at it. So you can see this bag's a little bit big, so you get some, I don't know if you can see that, you sort of get some leftover little bits here that are kind of hanging off. Once it's shrink wrapped, the plastic becomes very, very hard actually. So the good thing about this is that it protects your soap really well. You can still see the design through the shrink wrap, so that's really great. If you shrink wrap your soap so that they are completely encased, which you can do, the bad thing is you can no longer smell the soap usually. Now, that's not completely true. There are shrink wrap bags out there that are smell through. I've never tried them, but that's a way to address it. So lots of people like the shrink wrap. Another con for that is you can see it took a little while to do each soap. There are also shrink wrap systems out there that you can buy, and I'll try to put a link to one or two of them that I've looked at online. So the systems sort of let you do multiple soaps at a time, so you can do a lot more. So it's a little faster, but it does take some time still to do each one. Plenty of people I've seen put the label inside the soap and then shrink wrap over it so you can still read everything, at least on one side, and then they leave the other side clear so you can see the design of the soap. In this case, like I have seen other people do also, they've shrink wrapped it, but they leave the top and or sometimes even the top and the bottom open so that people can still smell it, which is a nice option, I think, too. You can see, like, I'm not great at this, so I get sort of little wrinkles and things like that. It does take some practice, but you know, once you're a little bit better at it, I think you can get your soap shrink wrap pretty nicely if you like the shrink wrap option. Okay, so that's another option. And then the one I have been exploring myself a little bit more that I might like to try is actually making paper boxes. Now you can go online and buy boxes, and I'll try to again put some links down below for some places you can go just to buy boxes. There are craft boxes and soap boxes with cutouts and things like that. But I thought I would sort of take you through an example of making a paper box. So if you're a scrapbooker, you might already have these supplies sort of handy. So this here is a scoring board, and you can see it has lots of little ridges on it and a ruler. So I'm going to make one for my soap, and this soap is made using the Essential Depot red mold, and it's a little bit tall for that mold. I kind of filled it up. So, but the dimensions I'm about to give are for that soap. Obviously, you could make a box for your soap depending on the size of your soap. But just so you know, this soap here is about 3 inches by 4 1/4 by about 1 inch. Okay, so that's about the dimensions of my soap. So here I have a piece of cardstock just with a pretty pattern on it. And the cardstock measures 5 1/4 inches by 12 inches. So if you're using 12 by 12 sheets, you could get 2 boxes out of 1 piece of paper. Okay, so I'm going to put it on my scoring tool here, and I have a little scoring stylus that just has a little ball on the end. And on the short side, the 5 1/4 side, I'm going to score it at 1 inch, at 4 1/4, okay, 4 1/4, oops, inches. Then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to put it the long way. On the 12-inch side, I'm going to score it at 4 1/2 inches, 5 1/2 inches, 10 inches, and 11 inches. Okay, that's the scoring. Let me get the scoreboard out of the way. All right, and then I have, these are sometimes called bone folders, or a burnishing tool. And so I'm going to just take my folds and fold them over and use my burnisher to sort of crease those and make sure that the score marks that I've done create the folds where I want, and they're nice, good folds. And I'm going to put a link down to some blogs or some video blogs that I like for making paper boxes. And there's another soap maker out there, and I'll try to find this video, who makes a box out of a 12 by 12 piece of paper and does pretty much no gluing or anything. So if you haven't seen that video, I'm going to try and find that and put a link to it below. She just uses one 12 by 12 piece of paper and folds it kind of in a unique way and makes a paper box. And if you use the Brambleberry square silicone mold, those soaps fit really well in that no glue box using a 12 by 12 sheet of paper. Okay, so hopefully you can kind of see this. I have my burnishes all done here. And then, let me get my little template so I can make sure I know where you're going to make some cuts, and we're going to get rid of a few pieces of this. So I did this one earlier here just out of a piece of paper so I could know where to do things. So these 2 squares that are up here, you can see we have one side that has 2 1-inch pieces, and the other side has none. So in the place that has 2, these squares on the end we're actually going to get rid of. So I'm just going to take some scissors and cut those out. Okay. All right, and then we want to make some cuts. So right here where we just made those cuts, I'm going to cut straight down just along those lines. And then in the middle, I'm going to cut on both sides, these two here. Okay? So we're going to cut down here. And then on the sides. Okay. Now, this is going to be this part up here is going to be a tab that folds in to hold the box shut. And to make this easier, I'm going to show you a little trick. This is not my own doing, but one of the links I'm going to put below is to a YouTube site called Poodle's Papercraft. She's a lady in the UK who does great videos on making paper boxes. But one of the tricks I learned from her is this is a corner rounder. So I'm going to stick that in there and I'm going to press it. And you'll see it just makes a nice round corner for those edges. And this is going to eventually help us to close the box. Okay. All right. So I have some adhesive. Now, I'm going to use, this sometimes gets referred to as snail. It's sort of a tape roller adhesive. But if you wanted this to be very sturdy, I would say use liquid glue. I'm just using this because it's a little bit faster right now. So eventually, right, we can see the box is going to fold up like this. So I need to put some adhesive on the pattern sides of these. And then on the inside of these. Okay, so now we're going to fold our box up. I'm going to put those down there. I'm going to adhese those sides. You can see I put them in there. Now I have adhesive on these sides. I'm going to fold it up and okay. And then this is a box that you don't really need any adhesive up there. So here I have those corners that I rounded. You can fold these in, the little flaps, and then take your ones that you trimmed off and then just close it like that. Okay. Now, sometimes what works a little bit better, just another little tip I've learned from Poodle's Papercraft, is you can take a little sliver off the sides here, the ones that faces the front of the box. Just a little sliver, sort of at an angle, right? So it's a mini triangle, and that should help you to close the box also. Oh, I see what I did. I actually cut this here, this one, a little bit on the wrong side of my score line. So I'm going to take a sliver off here. Okay. Yeah, that closes really well. And if you want to get really fancy, you can take, if you have a paper punch, and let me see if I can find paper punch here. So this is a 1-inch paper punch, and you can slide it in just not even halfway, maybe a quarter of a way. Make sure it's nice and kind of even. Just eyeball it and punch that out. And then when you put your soap in, and you close it up, you have this little lip here that lets you open it a little bit easier. So that's a paper box that worked pretty well, I think. And then certainly you could use a printer and print out your own things on here, or from this point you could do more. You could put labels on, stick it, or you could do a cigar band. But I think this option is a really nice one if you're a crafty person and you like to do this sort of thing. You can pick your own papers. The cons obviously are it takes a long time, right, to do this for every single soap. So I'm a really small soap maker, do it from my home, just sell online, and I don't make a ton of sales, mostly just to friends and family and things like that. But and a couple of YouTubers actually, so thank you. But I might have the time to do this kind of personal attention. But certainly, if you are a soap maker that makes tons of soap, this is probably a more difficult option for you. So that's it. Okay, so we covered naked bars, we covered cigar bands, both with paper and with ribbon. We talked about organza bags or burlap bags. We talked about shrink wrap. And finally, we talked about making your own handcrafted boxes that are especially for your soaps. Okay, so that's it. That's my video on packaging for right now. I'm certainly not an expert. If you have questions or comments, I would love to hear them. And check below. I'm going to try and put a bunch of links. And I'm going to try and be better about putting a link to my website. I know a few of you have asked me for the link to my website, so I'm going to try and make sure I put that in all my videos from now on. But again, comments, questions, leave them below. If you have suggestions for packaging, I'd love to hear them. Or other ideas, those are all great. So that's it for now. Thanks for stopping by. Check back to Divinely Designed YouTube for more bath and beauty related videos. Thanks very much. Bye, y'all.